Chicago may be a beer drinker's town, but it's not much of a beer maker's town. Most of the beer consumed in the city's taverns, ballparks, and festivals comes from corporate breweries in Milwaukee or St. Louis, or from microbreweries based anywhere but Chicago. As recently as 2007, the city was home to just one commercial brewery, exactly as many as in 1833. But the microbrew drought may be breaking. In the last 2 years, Chicago's brewery population has tripled. Within a 2-mile radius on the north side, a pair of startup breweries have stepped up to compete in the city's two-fisted beer business. One of the challengers is Gabriel Magliaro, a 31-year-old New Jersey native and the CEO of Half Acre Beer Company, now producing lager and ale from a brewery on North Lincoln Avenue. Magliaro came to Chicago from Boulder, Colorado, a craft beer mecca where, he recalls, you're either a brewer yourself or you're friends with a brewer. Moving here in 2005, he found the dearth of local brews stunning. It screamed opportunity. But the obstacles, he quickly learned, were huge. The market is intensely competitive. The state imposes enormous taxes on beer sales, and giant distributors control the flow of brew. And when it comes to pricing and promotion, state law seems to favor the big guys.
It's also a town where you can do discounting. So if I'm a brewing company and I say, oh, well, I'll give you 3 kegs for every one that you sell. That's legal to do here, as well as, give away glassware and things like that. All those things make it hard for a small brewing company like ours.
On top of all that, the cost of running a brewery in the city would be outrageous. To brew beer on a commercial scale, Magliaro would need 10,000 square feet of space and licenses from the federal and state government. To sell it, he'd need a liquor license from City Hall. Magliaro's research told him that with so much working against them, as many as 25 local breweries have failed in Chicago over the years. Magliaro himself didn't have any history in the brewing business. Before starting Half Acre, he sold advertising for a magazine, and before that, he was a professional glass blower. But Magliaro isn't a historian, he's an entrepreneur. With a couple of investors and 2 partners, he plowed ahead, determined to see his vision through. And he did have one breeze at his back. So-called craft beers are the fastest growing category in beer. In 2008, craft beer sales jumped 6%, while macrobrew sales went flat. With $6.3 billion in sales, macrobrews grabbed 4% of the American beer market last year, up from just 2.5% in 2003. With those data points working for him, Magliaro was able to get an early toehold in the local beer market. Before he had brewed his first barrel, Magliaro had a deal with Chicago Beverage Systems, the country's largest beer distributor. Magliaro contacted Chicago Beverage just as the company was looking to boost its craft beer portfolio. And for Half Acre, getting on Chicago Beverage trucks gave its brew access to 95% of the taverns and beer retailers in the city. Of course, signing on with the city's biggest distributor carried risks, too.
There were a lot of reasons to not go with them. They're very large, they represent very large brands. There was a concern for a small brewing company, how would we be noticed in and amongst their portfolio.
Today, Half Acre is shipping through Chicago Beverage from a brewery in North Center, a cavernous, century-old former feed store where Magliaro is spending $315,000 on a rehab project due to be finished this fall. The space is a critical part of the Half Acre business plan, which envisions a community brewery, including a neighborhood location with both a plant and a storefront, a place where drinker and brewer can come together. But finding the space wasn't easy. Early on, Magliaro assumed Chicago's zoning rules and real estate prices, not to mention his own space requirements, would limit him to industrial sites, fine for brewing, but far from ideal for his retail plan. Then, last year, Magliaro got lucky. Mike Murphy, a Half Acre customer who sells the brew at Murphy's Bleachers in Wrigleyville, urged the Half Acre team to check out a vacant building his family owned in North Center. At first, Magliaro dismissed the idea. He couldn't imagine dropping a commercial brewery into such a trendy and residential neighborhood. But Murphy convinced him to look, and when he looked, Magliaro knew he'd found the perfect fit. With a below-market rent from Murphy, Half Acre had found its home. In February, the first Half Acre suds rolled out of the new space. Now, the brewery is producing beer at a rate of about 2,000 barrels this year, nearly triple what it sold last year. Half Acre's eponymous lager and Daisy Cutter Pale Ale are being sold in 250 bars and retailers around the city. And the storefront that Magliaro dreamed of? It's under construction. He's 5 months into the liquor licensing process, hoping that sometime this year, locals will be able to step off the Lincoln Avenue sidewalk into an honest-to-God Chicago brewery. And most of all, he hopes they'll walk out with a 6-pack. Half Acre's margin on beer it sells itself will be double what it gets through the distributor. And in keeping with Magliaro's idea of a neighborhood institution, he'll sell more than beer.
We'll also hope to sell some other things that local craftsmen are making that they might not have an outlet for. So to give people also another reason to come here and you know, sell interesting things. We want it to be a cool space.
Still, if Magliaro can pull it off, Chicagoans are most likely to come looking for a beer they can call their own.